I feel excited by the way that digital is changing design, because I work in that world obviously now, and I think the opportunity to fall in love with brands is more than ever before. Like, I think before we would create it's a more traditional print artifact type area of design. You would create something and you would put it out into the world, and clients would cross their fingers and hope for the best. And I think the difference now is that with digital and with social media and whatever, you can create digital brands and products that have a relationship with the user, and therefore when you have a relationship with something, it becomes part of your life and you fall in love with it. You don't worship it anymore. So I think digital has changed design enormously in some respects, and I think that that's one of the benefits of it. It becomes part of our lives, in our pockets, in our everyday, rather than a logo from on high or a brand from on high. So I think there's a more personal digital is allowing design to become a more personalised experience, which is exciting.
And then you've got the downside of these witch hunts over new brands launching, and then people can comment and then they change their brand and rescind it, and it's like pitchforks at dawn on the internet. It's crazy.
But because digital allows you to change things quickly, it becomes more able to be flexible. Digital allows things to be flexible. By its definition, it should be flexible. So actually, I think that's wonderful, because it's responding. It's a conversation between the audience and the creator, or
But I think then it could breed people just being so nervous about relaunching stuff or launching new things, because they're certain brands then worry about, well, what are the public going to think about this? So rather than committing to itself and believing in it, it's a bit.
But if you do it iteratively, it allows you to not take such a massive step. You launch things bit by bit, and you respond to it, and therefore you're crafting something that you know is going to work. So your risk is reduced, but your innovative opportunity is just as high as it ever was.
I know what Mike's saying. I think from a design point of view, especially from a designer's point of view, or a designer who cares sort of passionately about sort of design and the value of design. The danger of what you're talking about, it's extended out, is it becomes just a market research kind of thing, and you're talking, and of course in terms of user experience it's good, and it also changes it brings a lot of interesting ways that it changes the way we think about designing.
It's an observation really that I kind of really noticed, and it's certainly from when I started working, and it was at the dawn of digital coming into design, if you like, certainly for graphic designers. And there's always this thing where people thought it was going to somehow dehumanise the design, and take away from that. And I think till quite people saw that, and it's interesting. For me, it's not worked out like that. It's almost the opposite. And I think companies like Apple have probably helped with that as well, and the way that they've approached, the way that we design, because I'm guessing we still use Apple things, and the way they've helped designers express themselves and made it really simple. And I mean, to this day, I've never used a PC. I don't know how to use one, and it's because I've never had to, and so. I think that's one thing where it hasn't hindered the kind of people's expression, and it's actually helped them do more and take it further. And I think people used to be quite, certainly within education as well, quite wary about, you're going to have these like design robots who don't express themselves properly. And I think, like Matt says, it's just a tool, it's just a paintbrush, and if you can use them properly, then they should help you do unbelievable things that you couldn't have done before.
That's where the big shift is, I think, in that, we never kind of get really excited about a pencil that we use. I've got the latest, Rowney pencil, and it's, so whatever. And I think that the big shift really sort of came. The first shift came obviously when there was the first wave of technology, and it was a bit like, wow. And then there's the old chestnut about whenever you're working with a piece of software, you're always using someone else's creativity, because you're limited by their imagination in terms of how they've developed the technology. But I think that kind of now, there's generations coming now where using a laptop is no different to using a pencil, that they don't sort of see they're using technology.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I always remember something that Matt said, and he said, people keep talking about electronic music, and you said, when are people just going to call electronic music music? No one says, you listen to guitar music or you listen to this, and I think that's the case now where, my kids, they're from between 12 and 6, but they just get on a laptop and, they're not like child geniuses or something that they can do that, but they know how to use it, and it's an intuitive thing, and they don't think they're using technology, they're just doing something.
Things are moving too.
I'll be retired by then. You do what you want.
Down the supermarket at 6 in the morning.
Got a bit of the garden centre.
Keep spotting new talent, like new graduates who are like Ian was saying, like are intuitively grown up with the technology. Just look at the next generation really, and sort of, if you can't beat them, join them. Kind of embrace the new graduates coming out, and really make the most of their uninhibited, fresh way of thinking.
I think also with the internet changing the landscape of everything as well, I think looking not only at design graduates but looking in unexpected places too, looking at people that you wouldn't consider to be a designer, that they might have some amazing thinking because they now live in a more designy kind of world, and so they start to have thoughts and ideas which you can then harness and craft into something. So I don't think it's necessarily just from designers. I think the world's changed enough now that we are more design savvy as a species, and that there might be some hidden gems walking around in all sorts of walks of life or business.
I find it quite difficult to answer, not just because of retirement, but actually, I find it quite difficult to answer because I've sort of spent most of my life trying to not know what's going to happen, and that's like the boredom threshold. I love to respond to things, so like in near future things, or like this is going to happen, or something, and I like to be amazed and astounded by things. If you start to plan ahead, so some people like that, and especially people that are more business minded, and some people work better that way because we're all wired differently. But for me, it comes back to that thing, like if you talk about the future or 20 years time, I don't, to have to wake up every day knowing what's going to happen in 20 years time and just sitting around waiting for it, just seems to be like the most uncreative thing I could possibly do. So it's really a difficult question for me to kind of even make, not just to answer, but just to make sense of it.
Well, harking back to that instinct and intuition thing, we live in the moment.
Exactly.
I think one thing I have been planning for, I guess, to make sure I stay alive long enough for the next 20 years is just make sure you give yourself space. And I find myself being more creative the less I actually think about a project, because you keep that kind of helicopter view about things and this distance to things. So, don't pride yourself in doing all-nighters for the rest of your life. There's smarter ways to manage your time and to work, and if you're passionate about something, it doesn't necessarily mean you're working 18-hour days every day, I've been sort of delegating a bit more, but also focusing what I do on only the things that I can do, and some days I might do 2 hours or 4 hours, whereas I used to do 8 or 10 hours a day, and I'm getting far more done productively and creatively because I'm focusing on just the essentials really. So I think if you are thinking long term, it is all about, there's a life outside of design as well, and as Dave says, that's where you get your inspiration from. When you are doing family stuff, or you're running or doing exercise, or you're at a line dancing competition,
I get that with travelling a lot. I mean, it's you kind of, as soon as I'm sort of forcibly removed from sitting in front of my laptop or doing or being in somewhere where I'm supposed to be,
Yeah,
being
yeah.
creative.
Mm.
As soon as I'm taken away from that, it's almost a little bit, I'm desperate to get back to it.
Mm.
And I think that it's the same thing when there's a name on the tip of your tongue and it's kind of suppressed. And as soon as you stop thinking about it, it's going to come out. And I think that's definitely sort of. I'm not sure about whether making space for yourself is necessarily always universally going to be a sort of a temporal thing, a time-based thing. But I think making space for yourself is definitely a really important thing.
Yeah, I'm going to do more washing up. That's where I get my best
I
idea.
don't chopping vegetables.
Amazing.
I think, for me, in terms of preparing for the next 10 years or 20 years, or to be honest, even the next 1 year, we're kind of carrying on with what we've been doing, which is being drawn to things that appeal to us as new things happen. Certain things resonate and you want to investigate them and find out more, and we're naturally inquisitive people, so that's what you do. And you don't have to be good at everything, you don't have to be able to do everything, and this is one thing I say to students: you don't have to learn everything. Have an overview of it, and you might have some idea what it is, but just go for what you love and what interests you.
Yeah.
You're not going to be any good at something if you don't want to do it.
Mm.